And Sri Чинмой said yes. You know, when you're in the water, if you can clear your mind and you can be completely tranquil, you can actually use that power of tranquility to overcome your fear, but also to overcome the power, the destructive power that a wave might have. Well, I always look at the ocean as a temple, you know, as a place that I go to worship nature. When it's cold and windy, it's hard to feel you're in a temple.
New York can get cold. The good swells are usually few and far between that are not just like, you know, washing machine, survival kind of things.
It's classic New York. You know, you think of surfing in the warm climates, maybe somewhere in California or in Hawaii or some exotic place in the Pacific. But heck, we live in New York and we're from Queens, and why not surf?
You know, it's definitely a challenge to be a seeker in the middle of New York City. But you know, it's a challenge to be a seeker anywhere, really. I mean, you know, the real challenge comes from within.
The environment is maybe not as physically beautiful.
It's dirty. It can be. There's crime, but it's part of life. And then ultimately, I mean, Sri Chinmoy's philosophy is to embrace life and try to you know, transform it and transcend it. So that's what I guess we're trying to do here, and we are doing.
I'm a surfer and I'm a monk, and they go hand in hand. I'm a student of Sri Чинмой, and he advocated a path of living in the world. He felt that we had to live in the world in order to transform it. We're like modern monks. The last place I would have thought to have lived in any case would have been New York City, much less live in New York City as a spiritual seeker and as a surfer. It's very inhospitable to both activities. You know, when I moved to New York City, I didn't even know there were waves here.
In New York, I started surfing at the beaches in New York, which is about half hour from where we live. The waves can be good. Mostly in the winter and fall, you know, when hurricane swells come, it can be good, and there's certainly days when I don't want to go out. because it's too frothy, too crazy, you know, out there. And but a lot of time it's just small or semi-small, or you take what you can get.
I learned to surf in California at Lindemar Beach, and then graduated to Ocean Beach. I mean, I didn't grow up religious, but to me surfing was a way I could really feel connected with nature. When I was out of the water, it's like I couldn't capture the same feeling, and it's like I really wanted a greater sense of fullness in my life. I began to seek, to look for something, to look for a spiritual teacher.
A spiritual teacher is not like a university teacher or like a kindergarten teacher. He can take you from where you begin or where you are and actually give you inner experiences.
It's a very special connection. Shri Чинмой taught me how to silence my mind and feel a vastness inside my heart.
When I read his philosophy about the ocean, being in the ocean meant a lot more to me.
When you sit on your surfboard or you take a wave, you feel the vastness of nature and openness. It's very similar to meditation. It's the energy, I think, that you get from sports. It only goes to a certain place and then it stops. And then with meditation, you can take that same energy and consciousness and continue past the physical.
And that was the ultimate goal of the spiritual life. You know, we feel like drops, but we're really part of this ocean. In the Shri Чинмой Center in San Francisco that I attended, there was a surfer named Bill Coleman. Shri Чинмой gave him the name Nirvik. It means indomitable.
Nirvik was an underground body surfing legend and a big wave pioneer. And he gave me a real sense of the spiritual roots of surfing, in particular the things that drew him and a bunch of his friends from Southern California to the North Shore in the 50s.
Isolated, 10, 15 people in the water, whereas now it's you can't even, you can walk on boards all the way out, I guess. So it was paradise. I guess in a sense you've got perfection for a few seconds. Everything is perfect. on certain waves, certain times, you sort of remember forever.
I eventually ended up moving to New York City to be closer to Shri Чинмой, and I ended up in Queens, where he made his spiritual base.
Queens is great. It's unique in that it has so many different nationalities in the area that we live in. There's no friction, there's no tension. That's what makes Queens unique.
In 2001, Shri Чинмой went to Kauai. He loved Hawaii. And one of Shri Чинмоi's students brought Titus Kinamaka, the legendary Hawaiian waterman and native Hawaiian, to see him.
Shri Чинмой has a consciousness when you're in his presence, and you get a similar consciousness in the ocean, especially in big waves. So I think that he saw that consciousness in Shri Чинмой.
And it was unusual to me because, again, Shri Чинмой is Indian and Titus is Hawaiian, but there was a real understanding between the two. The ancient Hawaiian surfers and Polynesian surfers had gurus, like Shri Чинмой. They called them kahunas. Everybody from society went to them for advice, for blessings. They led prayers, they led meditations. But even more so, the kahunas blessed the surfers. They blessed their boards, and they prayed for waves. Hawaiians still have kahunas, and the kahunas still guide an aspect of Hawaiian society. And I think Titus, felt that Shri Чинмой was a guru and a kahuna.
Shri Чинмой wanted to pay homage in his own way to people who've done inspiring things, that people who tried to better the world within their own sphere, whether they were a world-class athlete or president of a country like Mandela.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Melon. I'm really honored to take part.
After we got back from Hawaii, for whatever reason, Shri Чинмой began to give me a lot more responsibility. I began to travel more with him, and we went to dozens of countries, and I got to meet hundreds of really, really incredible people. And along the way, I invited a bunch of people, including some surfers, to come and meet him. I got to see the world, in a sense, through his eyes. They really were the best years of my life.
So he created a unique way of honoring them by, as like a soccer player lifts a scorer overhead, for doing something spectacular. Shri Чинмой had a platform device where it actually physically lifts the honoree overhead and with a one-arm lift.
I pray and meditate. When you pray and meditate, you develop inner strength. But my inner strength, I don't pray to God to give me strength to lift heavy people. No, I pray to God and God blesses me with inner strength and power. And I use it to inspire mankind.
Very humbled and honored to be included in this group of people and to be connected with everyone here today and all these people throughout the world. My job takes me around the world. I meet people in all different cultures and societies and all walks of life, and it's just a beautiful thing. I have an amazing life, and I cherish it. And it's so nice to have an occasion like this to share with everyone else. So thank you all. Take care.
You know, it's interesting because one would think when the teacher passes away that you no longer have any contact with the teacher.
It was devastating, and I can sincerely say it's taken a couple of years to kind of try to feel like I'm coming out of it. As a group, we're growing more. We're trying to understand each other as humans more, as divine beings more. It's a challenge, but it's inspiring too, because there's always hope, and there's always the feeling that you can do more and transcend and manifest the devotion you feel within yourself. Ultimately, I learned that life is much more than it appears outwardly. It's an inner perfection, an inner satisfaction that I can safely say everybody has that within them, that capacity to reach.